Item number 2, pardon me. Roll call of directors.
Zebro?
Here.
Gorman?
Here.
Kaiser?
Here.
Maple?
Here.
Stankowski?
Here.
Javinski?
Here.
Bauer?
Here.
Nest?
Here.
Knadler?
Here.
Awesome. All present. Item number 3, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 4, there is one change, and we're gonna try to make it a permanent change of approval of the agenda. I'm going to move item 7, the student report, ahead of the special presentations. So that'll be number 6, the special presentations will be item number 7. Just because Ruby has a very busy schedule, and if you sit through all these presentations, you may not be leaving for a while. So with that, I will seek an approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion to.
Got a motion by Gorman,
Second.
second by Kaiser. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Item number 5, approval of the minutes. Minutes from the October 28, 25 regular school board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bauer,
I'll second.
second by Nest. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 6, student board report.
Alrighty, thank you. Good evening, my name is Ruby Slowicki, and I'm here tonight to highlight successes of our high school students over the last month. We're currently in the process of transitioning into winter activities, so I'll start reporting on those next month once they've had a chance to do some interesting stuff. Girls volleyball ended their season with the round 1 sectionals against Wapaka with a score of 0-3. They were ultimately awarded regional champs for the 12th time and GNC champs for the 8th time. Boys soccer ended the season being awarded 2nd place in the GNC. DECA's Trigger Can was a huge success. They collected 1,106 items total to donate to the Community Center of Hope. In addition, they're running the Motown Market, where students can purchase snacks, drinks, and Mosinee apparel. The choirs put on an incredible show last weekend, nearly selling out the auditorium on Sunday. After a ton of hard work and fun, they were able to perform on Thursday night, taking a break on Friday for football, and then having a show on Saturday and Sunday. This past weekend, some select members of the concert choir had an opportunity to perform in the annual GNC Music Festival hosted here in our auditorium. The football team fought with all they had, ultimately ending their season in the sectional final. They're finishing the season 9-3 as Great Northern Conference champions 6-1. They returned the cheese grater back to Mosinee and made it to level 3 of the playoffs for the first time in many of these players' lifetimes. Last time was 2007. FCCLA had their monthly meeting on November 13th, and they're busy prepping for the Christmas craft show in December. Members are also starting to look into competing in a star event, and they're making sure the Motique is still operating. The dance team has officially entered competition season. Last Saturday, they were awarded 2nd place at the Nina Dance Invite. Model UN members left the school at 6 a.m. on Saturday for the Mad Mun Conference last weekend. They went all the way to Madison after much preparation over the last few months, and they had tons of fun. Next, they'll be preparing for the final conference at the end of the school year. One Act Play just finished an awesome show on Monday for their families after putting on a show for students during ELT last Friday. They ultimately did not move on to the state competition, but they had a lot of fun with their shows this year. Student Senate has had a relatively calm month after the excitement of homecoming. They attended the Youth Leadership Summit with crew at the RVA Learning Center. While they were there, they had the opportunity to learn about leadership with other school districts in the area. Currently, Student Senate is hosting a fundraiser where they're raising money to support school activities, leadership opportunities, community events, and scholarships. They'll be selling popcorn from Double Good until this Friday. And that is all for this month.
Anybody have questions?
Thank you.
Ruby, I don't know what you're gonna do in the future, but I think it's gonna be good. Thank you. Okay, item 7A, discussion PTO fundraising presentation. come to the podium or do what you need to do. Speak from there, whatever you want.
Is it okay to speak?
Yeah, yes. Do what you want to do.
Alright.
You're giving us money, so go ahead.
Alright. I'm Amanda Lang, this is Heidi Dominic and Dan Lesniak. We're here from the Mosinee PTO. I'm the secretary and co-chair. Heidi is the
Co-chair.
Co-chair. Treasurer. We had a really outstanding year this year. Our parents and families of the Mosinee district, from kindergarten, actually 4K, all the way through 8th grade, did an outstanding job of helping us to raise money to provide these enrichment funds for our students. We have $6,000 more than previous years to offer, so this year we have $24,000. Wow.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate you and look forward to working with you as any endeavors we can. Thank you again. Item 7B, discussion special education annual report.
So, every November I come to you and kind of say, what is special education working on this year? I want to give you a brief overview, but also I want to introduce Dee Yurkovsky. She is our program support teacher this year, and she's been doing a lot of work in helping coach new special education staff and help them get their feet under them and understand what it means to be a special education teacher. So she's going to help us present here in a second. But first I want to talk about what are 3 main areas that we're working on in special ed this year. One being the introduction of co-serving, the second one being goal book implementation, and then we have what's called the ES3 grant at the elementary. So first I just want to talk about co-serving. So why did we look into this? Because when we talk about engagement as a district, special education is a spectrum of services. And what the research is showing is when students have some information, access to that general education curriculum, the gap actually closes in academics because they're making connections to what they're receiving in special education to what's being taught in the classroom. And so the high school has been down this path for quite a few years. We're working through it in other buildings. We're having some hiccups along the way. We're having to meet with teams to find what that looks like. But really what it's all about is providing a spectrum of services. So it's not all in the special education room, it's not all in the general education room. It's looking at each student, trying to figure out what works best for them. And that's where, like I'm saying, finding that balance and things like that, we're hitting some hiccups in the road, but we're talking through that, trying to meet with teams and say what's gonna work for them. So that's one of the things that we're working on. We did have a training in the fall where we started talking about what it could look like. We've met with different grade levels, worked through some of the challenges that they're seeing and working through continued challenges. But then we're gonna be conducting just some coaching observations. Dee Dee's done that with some of our different teams already as well, coming as a coach and saying, cause she did it at the high school, so she can say from my experiences, this is why I've tried. I can speak to my own where I also did some co-serving as well. But we're trying to help make sure we're meeting the needs of our students with disabilities through multiple approaches. One of the ways we're looking to really engage our staff, Goalbook Toolkit is a program that I talked last spring with the Instructional Programs Committee about. This is a tool to help our new special ed teachers really write good IEPs where you connect the present level to the goal. And then 2, making sure our goals are aligned to state standards and we're working and making sure they're age appropriate, grade level appropriate. And the reason we looked at this is because we've had some turnover in special education, so we wanted to give them a tool because this is often the hardest part of the special ed job is writing the IEPs. And we also have coming up in next school year, so next school year you're gonna hear a lot from me about self-assessment. And this is where we look at the legal compliance of our IEPs and the implementation. So this was a tool to help us make sure we're writing legally compliant IEPs. And with the co-serving, there is also a portion of this that starts to give ideas of accommodations. What can you try in a co-serving setting? What can you try out in a pull-out setting? And really have them get ideas, especially when you're a new teacher, to say, what's in my toolbox? What more could I tap into and work with? So I'm gonna have Dee Dee come up and she's gonna show you a little bit of what Goalbook Toolkit can look like. Sorry, the link's not working.
So while he pulls it up, like Brian and I talked, like when I first applied for this job, about, you know, especially when we have younger new special ed teachers and some that are uncertified, where do you start? Can you sign in?
Yeah.
Where do you start with writing an IEP? How do you know what's grade level appropriate, especially for these people that don't have a background in education or formal training and teaching? And so we started talking about, like, I said, I can develop something and I can base it on the Wisconsin state standards, and then he said, wait, there's this program out there that actually has that, they've already created it. And so we went, Brian, we did like we trialed it, and then we said, let's get this. There's a lot of different things. This is what teachers see when they go in there, and so some of the things I've been working with our new teachers is really, how can you develop good IEPs that match their needs, but then also meet grade level standards? Because if we don't write our goals based on grade level standards, we're never gonna look at closing a gap. We're just gonna keep building it further away. So some of the things I'm just gonna do a really quick, like this, it's kind of like a form of an AI to write an IEP, right? We've worked with our teachers to do this, like if we wanna write a present level, I can say my person is Brian. I'm gonna write something on Brian. Brian's in 2nd grade and he has a reading problem, okay? So when I start to look into this, this asks me questions, and these are guiding questions that help our new teachers say, where are my difficulties falling, okay? A lot of things we have like that phonological awareness. So these are skills that we would expect a 2nd grader to be able to do. And I can go through, or a 1st grader, I'm sorry, I picked a 1st grader. Like I could say, oh, they're really good at producing words with rhyming, but they really can't do any of this segmenting. So I'm gonna say those are needs for the kid. And then once I find that, I can generate a statement. Now this just starts to give us a guideline of what is our statement, what are my needs, and we kind of have something. But the really cool thing about this is now they've given me a screener that I can use to really look into that kid to say, okay, they can do this. It's hooked right into here. Over on the right, you see there's aligned goals. So those are things that are aligned to those needs that actually are at grade level based on the Wisconsin state standards. So if I say the kid cannot do one word syllable with digraphs, doubles, and blends, okay? If that means anything. I can look at it, it gives me a good goal that's written off. I can personalize this to the student depending on how they did on my screeners. It also supplies progress monitoring assessments built right in here. So we're not searching and developing these out of the blue. On the right, you see the standard that it's tied to. So we know this is grade level, this is where the kid should be working on, this is what his skill is. I know this is what a 1st or 2nd grader is expected to do at this level. We have a couple of different accommodations built in. If I really want, like, this kid's just a little bit below, I can get a modification to that goal right away. This is a grade level, this is a lower level, this is developing. So it just helps to give us guidance to where the kids are at, and just really align with those Wisconsin state standards. It also does that with the social emotional learning competencies. If I'm looking at a behavior goal, I can do the same type of thing. Like, this is where the skill that we're missing. It gives us ideas, it gives us a good starting point in the guidance for our new teachers. So we've been working a lot through this along with other things.
And the feedback from our new teachers is this is helping them a lot. They, like one of our middle school teachers who's on the emergency certification, she was like, Brian, and she was one of our highest login. She's logged in 333 times. But she's tapping into it and she's like, it's helping me with the ideas And this was her biggest fear, was the paperwork of special ed. And that's often what people say, special ed, there's so much paperwork. This helps start giving you ideas and give you, well, how am I gonna progress monitor it? And then to another side we're not showing you tonight, there's actually a strategy wizard that says, how do I teach that then? What are some strategies I can implement and do these things? So that way too, that part of this being written for the purpose of special education staff and how to do their role, it takes a lot of the guessing work or searching and trying to find these tools. We're giving it to them in one spot to help make sure we meet legal requirements, but also give them the autonomy as teachers to kind of look through and say, what does this have and what ideas are there? Thank you, Dee Dee. And then our last goal I just want a quick touch on. We are also in the ES3 grant. And that we entered into because at the elementary, I came to you in October and talked about the seclusion restraint numbers, how the elementary was identified for the second year. So this grant was available as a one-year grant. And really what the grant's purpose is to look at our students with disabilities that are having some of those behavioral challenges, and how do we build the knowledge and capacity of our staff to work through those. This is not a grant that will help us buy stuff. It's all about building the knowledge and PD and providing PBD to our elementary staff. So some of this, what we're working through as part of the grant, we did do a root cause analysis with DPI because DPI is your coach through this. Then we did some goal setting, we're having monthly meetings, but right now what we're discussing with them at our last meeting is what trainings do we need to put in place to help our staff to build their knowledge. And they offer a multitude of different things. So right now our homework for next month, the principal, myself, and the team is to say which ones do we want to work with them on to bring that knowledge and content to the elementary school.
Brian, wasn't some of the issue too at the elementary due to the way we were putting the students in there? Like some of the students may have been put in double, and I remember something about, does that sound familiar?
No, not.
Okay,
Not.
I thought there was something with the paperwork when we were putting it into the state. Maybe it was not quite labeled, is it
I think it
correctly?
was that seclusion and restraint practice.
Yeah, it wasn't,
Yeah.
it didn't meet the definition of
Okay.
seclusion and restraint. So we did allow work last year to say, what is seclusion and restraint, and creating that definition.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yes.
So co-serving is co-teaching?
No.
Okay, what's the difference between the two?
So co-teaching would say like, hey, we want students in the room 100% of the time and 2 teachers at all times in the room.
Okay.
Co-serving is us really having conversations to understand what's going on in the general ed classroom, to know that both teachers know here's the content, here's what we're working on. And then we look at the students, like for the tier 1 instruction, students with disabilities may be in the room. But then as they're getting their SDI minutes, they could stay in the room if appropriate. They could go to the special education room if that's where appropriate, but then we're pre-teaching, reteaching, and making sure there's connectedness to what's going on in gen ed and what we're doing in special ed. Because before that, like it might be special ed could have been doing something completely separate of what's going on in the gen ed classroom, and then a kid's going back not being able to transfer skills because you're working on 2 completely separate
Okay, so you
things.
want them to be in tandem, but are the kids fully inclusive always in the gen ed classroom, or no, sometimes they're,
That's-
or you're trying to lean more heavier on into that?
That's the balance we have to figure out.
Okay.
Because I'll say at some grade levels, like high school, they might be in the algebra class the whole time. At the elementary, we're finding some of that's not working for some of our kids to be in there the whole time. So we have to figure out how much are they in there for, and then do we go to a separate spot to work on things. So it's really, I'll say, like I said, there's hiccups that we're
Yeah.
working through and meeting with teachers about to say, how do we do things to meet the needs of our kids, but making sure we're still making the gains academically we wanna see. So it's really more about that connectiveness of understanding what's going on in gen ed, and how are we following up with it within special ed.
How's that going?
Yeah, that's my question.
I'll say it's different at each building.
Okay.
Like I said, the high school, cause they're further down the road, there's less bumps in the road. I'll say middle school, elementary, because the behavior piece is part of that as well. So that makes it difficult sometimes in figuring out how much time should be in the classroom, how much time should be out. And what are the additional tools that we need to train our special ed staff on implementing that's gonna help a student be successful in the general ed class. So, like I said, there are growing pains this year, I'm not gonna lie, so, but we're figuring things out and working through them.
Okay. Other question?
With the goal book toolkit, do you guys work with parents on that then? Are they also involved in kind of identifying a lot of the items
So,
and developing that IEP?
great question. So this helps us come to the meeting with a draft.
Okay.
Because we can only show up to IEP with the draft, we can't come with a finalized copy.
Mhm.
So a lot of times the parents don't see the goal book side, but what the special education teacher is looking at, what are they seeing in the classroom, creating the data, and then they come with that to
Okay.
talk through with parents, and of course, that's where we say it's a draft, we can massage and adjust that IEP
Okay.
based on what we also hear from the parents.
Any other questions?
So would you say behaviors are getting worse in the younger?
I think there's multiple facets to that. I think we do have different students since COVID. There are different things that we're working through. So I do think behaviors are a bigger part, and that's why I was excited about the ES3 grant for us to talk about how are we building knowledge of our staff to work through and try different things and have that toolkit. Cause I think too, we also do have a very young special ed staff at the elementary. So how are we building their training and knowledge to work through some of that and supporting them? And that's where I'll say too, I cannot thank Dee Dee enough for being our program support teacher, because she's been able to go into coach when it was just me last year trying to do that and all these other things. We've been able to team a lot of the coaching and work with different elementary staff.
So is it behavior when they go back into the gen ed room?
Depending on the kid, it's multiple environments. It's not just in the gen ed room, it's also in the special ed room.
Do you feel like you have enough staff to handle that? Cause I know we're operating, I think, quite a bit. I mean, for example, there's no more morning recess before school because we don't have the staff to be out there. Do you feel like you have an adequate staff number?
That's one thing we're monitoring, and I've been in conversation to make sure we are at the right levels with ranks, so that's one of the things I am monitoring.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right,
No.
thank you. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's exciting. I liked your goal book piece to it, that, wow, compared to years ago.
And that was our thing, when you're new, you're like, what do I write? This gives you a starting point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I
Great
got a
tool.
question.
Yeah.
What percentage of your, I'm sure it's growing, you've got more kids involved in it. How much of that would you think is because you're looking? And because you're looking, you find more kids that can be helped? Not saying you're out looking for making problems up, but
Mhm.
finding kids that would have been ignored 10 years ago even.
And I'd have to look at the numbers. I'll say we have school sites who do a really great job to make sure students meet the criteria of what the different disability categories are. So we try to, when they're ready to be dismissed from special ed, we're dismissing, and the ones that need to stay, are staying on. But I think as a district, we've been staying pretty consistent as a whole, right around that 16% identified as students with disabilities. Cause I think we've done a good job here of trying to say, when you're ready, we're dismissing, and when we see it and we're truly, and that's where a different process we have in place of that multi-level system of support to say, we try to help a kid before we identify them. So that's something that schools have been really putting a lot of effort in over the last 5 to 10 years to say, how do you try to intervene and do something before you go to special ed? So
Okay.
that we've tried to put systems in place to say we're trying different things first.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Item 7C, high school report.
So I decided to bring an entire team of folks up here for the board report. So obviously, Mia Schmiel, high school principal. Want to introduce yourself?
Kurt Vanderpool, associate principal. I'm Sage, I'm a high school student, I'm a junior.
Chase Harkey, junior as well.
So they're going to be part of the presentation in just a minute, but what I wanted to do is kind of set the stage for what they're actually going to talk about. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit more. So what the three buildings have kind of shared with you so far in September with Mr. Fitzgerald, with Mrs. Wollersheim's presentation, and now with me, kind of how we're looking at 4 different components of supporting students and becoming ready for like this next generation of the workforce and how we're preparing them to do so. So what we wanted to talk about today, and what you'll see some examples of taking place in the high school, is really looking at durable skills development. And I wanted to focus in on where the framework talks about personal life skills and how that helps us really be ready for future success. And how we're able to talk about those skills, practice those skills, reflect on those skills at the high school level, both in our buildings and outside of what's happening in our building. And then also kind of pairing that with global readiness. And when we think about the work we've done with conversations with industry partners, thinking about what's next for our students, even from the conversation we had in changing some of our coursework, we really want to think about how are we helping kids be ready to succeed in that evolving workforce. And that's a key piece of global readiness in that liftoffs framework. So what we wanted to do is kind of connect back to, I think, what you've already heard and how at the elementary level, it was shared in how we're personalizing learning paths with kids and using technology as just one means of doing that. Obviously, we have skilled teachers in every classroom who are able to work with students, and now we're empowering them with different tech tools to even support them in a better way. At the middle school level, as kids come to the middle school, having those skills built, being able for them, because they're ready, to help them be more empowered to drive their own learning and begin to identify what are their areas of interest, and really beginning to put them in the driver's seat of their own education. So what we've been talking about at our building is really thinking about what our kids are currently doing and how do we take some of the skills that they're doing through youth apprenticeship and just being in the workplace and bringing that into the building. So that top circle you see there is actually something that I want to highlight when we get closer to the renovation or our referendum build. We had 2 students actually work with our architect to begin to look at how are we going to create our school store. So they did some tours, they identified what makes sense for their business plan. You actually literally get a chance to walk through that in the not so distant future, which is really cool. But we've had students begin to look at being part of that process. We literally have students building our building. And then at the bottom picture, you see one of our students who, through a youth apprenticeship, is working at Greenheck and is continuing to build her skills as a welder, and actually is at a place where there are very few students who are doing the work that she is doing at this time. So we wanted to look at what's happening outside of our building and being able to bring that obviously to our students and elevate student voice. So I wanted to bring in students to begin to talk about student voice. And also, Mr. Van Den Heuvel has been really key in helping kind of drive this train a little bit with the students and giving them some direction, I should maybe say guardrails in a sense, as we begin to think about a new vision for our student body. So I'm gonna hand it over to these 2.
All right. So, just in case anybody forgot my name, I'm Sage. So we're gonna start with the basics. What is Crew? crew is a diverse group of students from all grade levels, backgrounds, or interest groups, and our main goal is to empower students and revise our expectations, model those expectations, and live those expectations.
Our first priority that we've been kind of working on is taking our, re-updating our core values, and what we've done for that process so far is talked and surveyed 9th through 12th grade students and sent out a Google form, and they typed in what they think their personal values are, and we got all that information, and then analyzed industry partner skills shared by local industry leaders, and analyzed the teachers did the same thing where they made purpose statements about themselves as well. And kind of our first meeting, we looked at all of those and see what keywords were really popping out that we could take away from those and create as our core values.
All right. Our reason for the revision of values. Our old values feel outdated and undervalued, leading to the lack of follow-through from the overall student body, as they were created long before we were even here. This left the words to lose their meaning and their symbolism, no longer holding a place of importance and relevance in the minds of students. So these are our newer and improved values. So first we have accountability. So first, let's start off with this. First column on the left side, you will see our values, which is what we believe. The second column is how it's built. How do we behave? How do we act in our school building? And column 3, the outcome we hope to achieve. Our defined success, if you will. So first, in our values, we have accountability, growth, and unity. For accountability, we have to behave, we have to show up, even when it's hard. Because school, not everybody likes school, but we all come anyways because we know it's good for us. We own and learn from our mistakes, because mistakes are just an opportunity to grow. We exceed the standard and set forth, meaning that there's a bottom line, and we want to hit that bottom line or above every single day. Growth, we take calculated risks. Pretty self-explanatory. Growth, we seek to be receptive to all feedback, letting all voices be heard. And we will lead and be led. So that be led isn't necessarily a connotative meaning, because the strongest people in a group of people are not so much the leaders, but the first people to follow those leaders. In unity, to talk to others, not about them, meaning don't talk behind their back, go and talk to the person. Seek to understand, then to be understood. Give them a chance to speak for themselves before you speak up and voice your own opinions. And then forgive others. Don't hold grudges. And then our accountability outcome that we hope to achieve is to model excellence, growth is to maximize potential, and unity is to make an impact.
And I want to kind of chime in and talk about like the amount of conversation that has gone into this, and know like this is the draft piece, right? So as they've gone through that, kind of tying back to the conversation of the previous slide of this all came from analyzing teachers' purpose statements, looking at feedback from our community stakeholders that are sharing what they're seeing and what they're looking for future employees, and then looking at what the students value when they're in this building. So having that and pulling that all together was really impactful, and just letting kids look at that and have conversations and know like this was an eclectic group of all different types of kids and different experiences that they're having within school, where they've shared negative experiences, positive experiences, and then to analyze all of those outside things and bring them together was powerful. And I think where we're going with this now, as this is a draft, is now how do those durable skills become that outcome? So when we say model excellence, what durable skill is going to be the commitment that we're going to have, right? So that now we have, if our durable skill is time management, how does that accountability showing up even when it's hard? How do those conversations start coming into fruition when we're having those conversations in the classroom, when it's in the hallways, things like that? So making relevance to all the experiences that are going on. So that was kind of the overall vision as we were talking about this, and to hear those kids share what they're looking for really tied in, and it brought all the pieces together, right? So what we're really holding on now and how we're gonna continue to have those conversations is based out of that leadership conference, is now looking at those durable skills. How do we make those commitments? Because right now we've talked as a group, as we got our piece of paper, we've gotten it written down, we're starting to communicate it out to the stakeholders. Now how does it become within our heart where it's felt and it's believed and it's just what we do here? So that's kind of that moving piece and that overall vision, but right now you're just seeing the paper form of it, right? So.
Our leadership retreat is what we went on last Wednesday, I believe. It was, we joined with Student Senate, and members of our school participated in the leadership building activities. The participating members met with their other schools' student leaders, encouraging us to learn, work with authenticity and integrity. These activities strengthened our cooperative skills and critical thinking skills. Each group was given the opportunity to formulate a step-by-step plan to improve our skill. And really, it was really beneficial to really talk to other schools and see what they're doing and how we could benefit from their school, or how they can benefit from our ideas, to really take back to us and come back with those ideas of how we can better our school and become more student-led, and really just to better our school as a whole.
Right, and our plans for the future. In the future, our student body hopes to better account for students' needs and create a more inclusive dynamic across our building. We will also finalize the core values and expectations by collaborating with the MHS building leadership team. Once finalized, we will begin to develop ways to share, model, and lead these values in our school community. Any questions?
Was that the GNC leadership conference you were at, or wasn't?
No, it was something.
RVA.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the MHS building leadership team, that's the staff
That's, yeah, so
leadership
that's like
team?
the teacher side.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So the students then will come and do the same process, and there are some actually BLT members in the audience right now, but they'll act surprised. For that, kids to go through and actually talk about the process, why they landed on those values, and then for us to really begin to think about how do we share this with the larger staff? Is this the direction we wanna go? But really from a student perspective, thinking about what can they connect with and what are they willing to commit to, so.
Awesome ownership.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, item 7D, Act 20 presentation.
Trying to pull it up, we can put it on here. Plug it in.
Just plug it in directly. Well, the problem is that what, just, you know,
You can come and sit here.
Wanna just get started, Tom, wanna get this one?
Yep.
I don't feel like everybody's
as long as you can, and then if you want to
Here,
just,
you wanna trade with me so you can see your slides, and I'll log into there?
I have them print out, as long as it's okay. As this, just pull up your agenda.
So the first one I have is Greg asked me to just give a brief update on Act 20. We're in year 2 now of this. And obviously it was a big piece of a lot of conversations last year. So just an update of where we're at, moving into year 2, what continues to move forward. The first piece, things that were happening in year 1 that continue, we continue to give our fall, winter, and spring screeners using Ames Web. From a K-3 standpoint, that is continued to be corrected. We have chosen to adopt that as our screener K-8, just for a continuation of services and making sure that the data we're reading continues to just be fluent among grades, especially as it continues to transfer. We continue to make sure that we have and are required to offer personal reading plans for any and all students K through 3 who test below the 25th percentile and meet certain standards of deficiencies in their reading ability. And we continue to train all of our staff using Cox Campus as the mechanism to make sure that they all are compliant with what's required in early literacy foundational skills. And so we're in year 2 of that. That's built into our PD days, so they watch a video of learning, have things they have to do as they learn, and then there's follow-up with our representative from CESA 6 who provides professional development directly aligned to that learning. So it's a 2-piece part, and it has been a very heavy lift for that staff when it comes to just time management during those days and what is on them. Some new elements to it this year. Our leading literacy page is now fully live on the website. So if you go to Family Resources, we now have a page dedicated to just information about components of early literacy, how you can identify issues within your student if you see things at home, who you can contact. And including on there is the part where our early literacy remediation plan is publicly available for parents to be able to see and read if they're concerned about their struggling readers and what they can do. We have extended PRPs to 4th grade, so although you are not required until next year, it made no sense for us to have a 3rd grader be on a personal reading plan and then pull that support from them as they transition to 4th grade. So we have created that continuity of service into our 4th grade team to make sure that that service continues as they transition, and we will continue to implement that each grade as the students continue to move through unless they're able to test out of that. And then one thing we have started to do, so without getting too much into the weeds of norming of this test, Ames Web re-normed their literacy screener because it hadn't been done in so long. And what that did was it did drastically change where some of those scores fell. So the number of students we have screening below the 25th percentile was reduced considerably, both through the work that we did in year 1, but 2 as a result of that renorming. And so one thing we have done is if a student tested between the 25th and 40th percentile, we implemented what we're calling a personal monitoring plan, saying that we recognize that these students, although they don't test below the 25th percentile, still have some level of reading support that is needed, and we need to continue to progress monitor. Why 40th percent was picked was that is kind of the cut point that we've been given as where they believe a student who tests at or above that should be at a level of grade level proficiency when they test on the forward in 3rd grade. And so again, although some of our students may have tested this year with that screener above that required compliance level of a personal reading plan, we acknowledge that we need to continue until they're at that point where we know that they're at grade level or it should be at grade level. And so we continue to progress monitor them, we continue to identify those needs. They're just not identified within that percentile of compliance. So that's something new this year. Additional planning.
We are now starting to look at, as we start to roll out summer school, where does necessary remediation fit into that for students who continue to struggle? Reading, what are we going to provide for families who are looking at getting additional reading support through that? Again, we're a year early, as far as the law says you have to be compliant, but again, why wait a year? We're gonna start having those conversations now for those students and families, who at the end of third grade still are not at that grade level reading ability. And then something we are going to do, we have had a lot of success and really like the progress we're seeing with our UFly materials adoption when it comes to phonics and early literacy. But we do acknowledge we need to look at the rest of our ELA package at a K-5 level. There's been a lot of work being done making sure that we're compliant, and we've crosswalked to ensure that it's grade level. But now that we have been able to get our feet underneath us with UFly, we do acknowledge that we need to look at the rest of that to improve our scores when it comes to ELA and reading in general.
When do you think you're gonna do that?
When?
Like what's your timeline?
Yeah, probably at the end of this year, summer into next year, we are already starting to collect information as to what's out there. The constraint, I would say, that we're looking around and trying to learn more about is we really feel we have a strong early literacy program in UFly. And so we're trying to find what other companies offer those other services without a whole package, right? So like some of these K-5 programs, in order to get pieces, let's say their reading comprehension program, you have to adopt their early literacy. And we really think UFly is a top program. And so we're trying to collect information from different companies and understand what is out there now, so we can start digging into that.
Overall, your personal feeling, you think it's going pretty well?
Well, I think, I've been in now 6 classrooms in the elementary to watch these UFI lessons, to see the kids' engagement, to see how it rolls through. When I'm talking just for that early literacy component, I think it's really strong. You're starting to see really strong implementation of those strategies. Mr. Fitzgerald has worked hard with his instructional coaches now to move that into some of those high leverage literacy routines where they're going to start holding some after school sessions just to continue and accelerate some of that learning. So I can't say enough about the work that the staff has done to implement a lot of this and the learning that they've had to do over the last 2 years and have one more year to continue before they're certified. And when we look at where kids were last fall to now, we are seeing drastic improvements.
Have you gotten much guidance from the DPI? I mean, before we kind of struggled with anything.
Yeah, it's out now, right? So continued guidance beyond that has slowed or stopped because we have the parameters, right? And we have that. So it continues to be status quo. No new funding that I'm aware of, right? And, I think Greg shared one of the difficult parts of the intricacies of that screen area is the disruption to that building to be able to do, as well as the financial commitment of subs to make sure that your building continues to operate while those screeners are happening. So there is a financial component to our district as we work through it, for sure.
Other questions?
Did you say how many kids have PRPs?
I can tell you.
Or how many did, how many do?
So
What's the number?
I do not have the number of PRPs, but I have the number who tested 25th and below last year. I have the number of PRPs for this year. So if you were to compare, so this year in kindergarten, 11 tested in the 25th or below, last year 39. So of those 11, 8 qualified for a PRP. If we were to look at some other levels, second grade last year had 40, and this year they had 28.
were saying how you were, gonna continue to monitor those from the 25th to the 40th. So how long will you continue to do that for? You know what I mean? Because now the state has said, right, that it's this level, but they changed it, is that what you were saying?
The state didn't
Or, I'm
change
sorry.
anything, but Ames Web
Ames Web,
renormed, so
Got it.
essentially what that means is what it takes to get to a certain percentile changed.
So how long do you think you'll keep monitoring that up to the 40%?
I mean, ideally, if we know, what we're interested to see is, although we're told that the 40th percentile is the correlation to grade level standard, we would love to see, once we get our forward results, how strong is that correlation, right? Is 40% really where we find the bulk of them? If they're screening at that, are testing at proficient? If not, digging into why. But it's hard to say without knowing where the trend of numbers goes, because part of it was, what level of support do we have to do that? And we had more support because of the less kids in that 25th or below. So we have the ability to do it.
So once a personal reading plan is given, obviously they get the information, but then what is the interaction then between the teacher and the student? How many times are they meeting? What are they just giving, like, additional homework to do? Are they doing it together in small groups? Like, what does that actually look like in real life?
So for a student on a
Personal reading plan.
So daily they're meeting with a reading interventionist, getting their interventions on top of their core in the classroom.
In one-on-one or small group?
Small group.
How many? Like 5? 2?
4, I wanna say.
4 at a time?
You know, I wanna say it's 4 is the number.
Do we have one designated reading interventionist that goes, or are we using like the title or?
Title is who we're using.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then the difference then between the services they're giving to someone who's like entitled versus like personal reading would be what?
From a reading standpoint, now
Yeah.
they're interchangeable.
Oh, they are? So the number of kids you have on personal reading plans is the number of kids you have entitled?
The only change is now, because of that renorm and the change in numbers, we are able to service additional tier 2 groups with our reading specialists.
Sure.
So those groups are bigger.
Anything else?
I know when we had talked last year, just the implementation time on this, I know we're looking at the calendar for next year, do we feel like that's a big restraint right now? As far as the availability for staff to learn this, implement it, get it started, or is that better now?
It continues to be a bulk of their time, right? So, I'll share next Tuesday for in-service, they have a 3-hour video that they have to watch independently and do, and then they have a 3-hour in-service with the CESA 6 reading specialist as part of that certification. So it's been nice having additional in-service days within the school year to embed some of that. I think that was a big challenge without that. Continuing to have that, I think, is important.
Mhm.
But I don't want to, I guess, negate the fact that it is still a big time commitment for them that doesn't exist in other parts of the district.
Mhm.
Okay, I think you're staying there, thank you. Item 7E, discussion state and local report card.
All right, so I'm gonna just kind of give you an overview. So these were released officially for public consumption last week. The first 6 or 7 slides, I just want to be clear, this is general information about state report cards in general. So the images are not Mosinee specific until we get midway through, okay? They're just general samples. So one thing we talked about last year, and I think this year's report cards amplify the argument that we made, is that this continues to be a really difficult document for us to use as our sole data source, because The state continues to modify elements of it, which make them not comparable from year to year. So this year's report card is what they're considering a new baseline. So you cannot compare our score last year to our score this year. It's not apples to apples. And there's a lot of reasons why. If you remember last year, we talked about how the state had changed the cut score for proficiency on all of their state exams. And so they implemented that algorithm. So we told you that there would be a bump in some scores because they took the score that you were supposed to get, subtracted 4, times it by 0.97. If you went up, that was your score. If you went down, they just kept your score. They didn't want to decrease anybody, so nobody in the state of Wisconsin got a lower score than they did the year before. Well, so this year, they made a couple other changes, as well as the result of that, like decreasing that or getting rid of that algorithm. And so now your overall report card score, what they want us to do is this year's is now the baseline moving forward. The two scores are not comparable. So if you look at last year's, it's calculated a completely different way than this year's. So that we just want to make that understood as we look at this report card score. There are some elements, and so this is why we say it shouldn't be our only source of information as we're building continuous improvement, but there are elements that we can take and learn from and understand and get a better picture. So some areas that are comparable, some components of achievement and growth. So we can look at achievement for the last 2 years. We can't go to the third year, but the last 2 years, those numbers are derived from that same cut score of proficiency. And so when we get to achievement, you will see 2 bar graphs that do compare those 2 years. Those are comparable. Not all elements of achievement are just because of the way that they calculate their points, but those 2 years are. Attendance and absenteeism is comparable. Nothing would changed in that formula. And graduation is comparable. Nothing changed in that formula. One thing to note with attendance, absenteeism, and graduation, that's lag data. So when we look at this year's report card, that's not last year's attendance rate and graduation, it's actually the year before. DPI collects those numbers December for a snapshot, which means it's the year. So you're looking at achievement from last year, graduation and attendance is actually the year before. Just in case you're wondering where they get all of their data, achievement, that's the state standardized test score. So K through 8, it's forward along with 10th grade social studies, although that's not factored into the report card. Pre-ACT secure is 9th and 10th grade. ACT with writing is 11th grade. And DLM is an alternative assessment for students with disabilities who don't qualify to take the other tests. This year's report card, like I said, includes the 2 years of data. Your growth scores come from the exact same thing. Your target groups come from those two, as well as your WISE data, which is the state's portal. They take from our student information system. We double check things and it pulls from there. Other data includes our third Friday count enrollment. Your open enrollment numbers comes from the OPAL database. Demographics comes again from WISE data along with test participation. And you'll see pages 9 through 11 this year, I believe, includes more in-depth course data, including work experience, advanced course access, and a new state statute requires on the district report card, if you go to the last page, certain state and local law violations that get reported through a survey that I believe Greg fills out. So digging in, achievement, I've kind of described most of this, just highlighting that 1 year only scale adjustment from last year is now gone. That temporary adjustment is gone, and so now it's compiled through the 2 years of achievement data, 23, 24, 24, 25, Starting next year, achievement, so again, when we talk about comparing, starting next year will be the first year again where it will be 3-year averaged of achievement, because that's been the traditional. You'll notice if you look at the bar graphs when we get to the report card, your percent proficient or advanced does not equal the achievement score you get assigned. They use what's called points-based proficiency. So you get a point for every student who's meeting, you get a 1.5 for every student who's advanced, you get a 0.5 point for approaching, and you don't get any points for a student who tests into developing. This year, last year's is weighted at about 60%, the year before is 40%. Those weights will then adjust next year again when they add the 3rd year of data. But wanted to include this because sometimes we look at that percentage and wonder why it's a different score than the actual achievement score. Growth, how growth is measured, this does take 3 years into consideration this year. What growth does is it takes our students' test score from the year before, pools it together with students who test at a similar area, creates an average growth expected for that student in that area, and then assigns points and values if they either exceeded that average expected growth or fell below that average expected growth. So that's how that's compiled. Growth calculation, there's just a little picture there if you want to better understand where that score comes from. So they create, if you look at the growth page, 3 is considered that median growth. Anything below 3 means a student is growing below the state average of comparable students. Anything above 3 is above the expected growth or state average.
Just really quick, when they say similar students across the state, how do they group those?
Where they tested at. So like if as a sophomore I got a 15 on my pre-ACT, looking at similar students who tested at a 15, where was their average growth to their junior year? Let's say 17. If I exceed that, depending on where and how much, I get assigned a score above 3. If I did not exceed that, depending on how far away I am from that median, below 3.
Okay. So it's down at that individual level, it's not just taking a group of students at a district
And
size.
so again, like to get complicated, yes, but DPI hires a firm to do their growth score and they don't release the formula. So while we have these general ideas, I couldn't talk to too much of the specifics. On track to graduation, that's your chronic absenteeism, that's a 3-year rate. Your graduation rate compiles at a 4 and a 7-year rate. Attendance is last year's, and then at the elementary school you would get a score for your 3rd grade ELA achievement. At the middle school you would get it for your 3rd grade math achievement as a measure. So these are now Mosinee snapshots, no longer samples. So looking at the district snapshot, our overall score is 71.8. We exceed expectations. However, looking at this, we do highlight some areas that we know we can take away as trends of things we need to improve. You know, highlighting that growth score as something that we have to look at and continue to address.
What was our overall score last year? Or, I don't know if it matters.
I have it. Again, calculated very different. It was 68.6. So an improvement. Another thing to just be leery of when you look at other school districts' report cards, and another reason why this is difficult to compare and say that it's apples to apples, every school district in the state of Wisconsin has a different pie chart here. So those percentages that highlight those priority areas are different for every school. And it's totally dependent on your demographics, especially socioeconomic status of your district. So our 71.8 is not equivalent to another district's 71.8. It's made up of different scores and weighted differently at every district.
Because in general, your socioeconomic, a district with more money, like, what is the difference between that you just said?
Well, the difference is they plug in their own formula and their weights are different. So if you look, I can't see, this is really small. It looks like our achievement is weighted at 33.1% of our overall score. Our growth score is 16.9. There are other districts that flip that. Their achievement is only weighted at 15%, but their growth is weighted at 40%. And so the DPI has their way of plugging it in, but every district is different based on your demographics and how they weight your scores. So you might have a far better achievement and percent of students proficient than another school, but if they were really heavily weighted in growth and did well on that, they might have a better score than you.
But we don't know how they determine that. We don't know what their calculation was of why
Not necessarily like the exact equation that they plug into their algorithm. They just tell us it's district demographics and that they heavily weight socioeconomic status.
Trying to find out that this calculation of this report card,
Yeah,
it'd be
I know.
easier to get the code of the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Last year at the state convention, remember Megan?
Yeah, the
Both you and
local
I
ones,
were in
yeah.
that conference. And everybody was just like all over the page with it because they couldn't understand how they calculated all of these.
And we're gonna finish with our local report cards is why they're even more important than ever when we look at these calculations.
So this is mainly to compare our school to our school year in and year out?
That's what it can serve as, right? And that's why there are elements of this that we need to use to learn more about trends within our district and identify.
Are we able to look at a lot of our surrounding schools? Are they pretty comparable, their demographics, I would assume, to ours?
Their priority weights some might be within 2 or 3%, but none are identical.
I would venture to guess if you looked at a school like Abbotsford that's got a high free and reduced lunch population, their priority weight is probably shifted more towards growth and less on achievement, because the
And so
correlation that they're trying to say, I believe, don't quote me, but the way I theoretically understood it is students that come from lower income families don't have as high of a jumping off starting point, so their growth is going to happen where kids from higher socioeconomic homes, school districts start higher, so your growth, it's like the proverbial, it's easy to bench from 135 to 225, but to go from 225 to 245 is sometimes harder because you're at a point already.
So this is elementary, received a score of exceeding expectations of 71.5. Because we are a K-3 elementary and students don't start doing state testing until 3rd grade, they do not have a growth score or a target score because there's no previous year to compare to. So theirs is strictly achievement and on track to graduation. Middle school exceeds expectations at 73.3. All the same 4 areas now because each of the grades test, so they can get that growth and target group score. High school snapshot, 71.5, exceeds expectations. So you can even see within the buildings, so if I were to just look at middle school to high school, you can see that pie chart changing, right? So even building to building, it changes and weights are different. District level, looking at achievement specifically, just again, this is proficiency, not that score that you saw there. So we had shared at the beginning of the year when we did our continuous improvement planning, we foreshadowed that we did decrease in our testing achievement. And when we look at our ELA scores as well as our math scores through all buildings, this is something that we are looking into, digging into, and precipitates a lot of the conversations we're having around instructional practices. This is the high school specifically. We did see this is the one area in the one building in achievement we saw an increase as a whole was math at the high school level from student proficiency. Middle school achievement, you see those scores there. Elementary. So just some general takeaways, then I'm gonna ask the principals to come up and talk about their local report cards. There are takeaways that are positive and negative when we look at the state report card, but it continues to be a really difficult and unreliable measure for strong continuous improvement efforts. There's data points that we can take and look at, and we can find really quality trend data that we can help inform, but we have to also look at some other local sources to get a really whole picture of where we're at and where we need to go to get better. One of the major takeaways is if you look through these buildings, our growth scores are something that we have to look at. And if you look at the past couple, the growth scores have been trending down, which could have helped us predict that our achievement scores are eventually going to follow if we're not growing at the rate of the rest of the state. And so that is part of a lot of the work that we're doing instructionally to address that. And so with that, I guess each building, we can talk a little bit about their local report card.
So as Tom said, our overall score exceeded expectations, which is great. It's something to be proud of, but you know, having a growth mindset, whether the report says you're doing really well or not very well, I think there's things to improve on. Our ELA scores, and again, you gotta keep in mind, like he said, it's just third grade tested. So even though it's elementary, you're just basically looking at third graders here, but our ELA scores were slightly above the state average. You know, just giving you a number, 65.3 versus 64.7, and then our math scores were slightly below state average, 67.4 versus 68 for the state. So those are definitely two areas that we are looking to improve on.
I think it's linked, but that way you can have a visual as well. So local report card for the middle school, I think just a couple things that I would point out. One of the things that speaks the loudest to me is the attendance rate, right away on the front. So I looked at all of our surrounding middle schools, and we exceed the attendance rate in terms of the number of students who have been here, been present in the, at school for 90% or more of the year. So Mosinee Middle School came in at 95% of our students met that. And again, I looked at all of the schools, and that is above all of the surrounding middle schools, which to me speaks volumes in terms of kids want to be here, they have connections, or they feel connected, their families value education, and I think of if kids are in seats in front of us, the engagement is higher, and all of those things, right? We have the ability to identify needs and provide supports wherever necessary. So that I think is a really, really cool thing that I wanted to highlight. The other thing on the bottom, so Tom just kind of talked about how the forward exam scores are renormed and we're not comparing apples to apples. It's hard to gauge those things. So you can look at those percentages over the years, but they're not, you can't gauge whether we're, you know, safely right now where we're headed. But if you look at our internal screeners, our local screeners on the bottom, the fast bridge exams, it's pretty neat to see the growth within both ELA and math. The back side of that sheet, the points of pride, I'm not gonna go through it all, but I think that this is a really good example of how we get our kids, how we keep our kids at the center of our decision making, and how we provide opportunities both within our building and outside of our building, outside of the school day, connecting with community members and businesses, and also some of those extracurricular activities. So good things at the middle school.
And from the high school level, I'm kind of connecting to what the presentation had been earlier, thinking about the opportunities our students have at our high school. So we last year had 315 students successfully complete some kind of higher level or dual credit course. And for us, that's about 53% of our student body completed that, versus a state average, which is at 23%. So when we look at the level of coursework that our students are completing here, we far exceed what the state level is at this time. And also looking at locally, the opportunities our students have from youth apprenticeships. So we basically are far above and beyond any of the local districts when we look at our YA participation. We currently have we had 85 students last year participate in youth apprenticeship, and I think the next district that was closest to us had about 60 students that actually were part of that opportunity. So when we think about the high school level, how do we begin to prepare our students for what is coming next? And really being able to highlight what they have opportunities to take a part of, how they're taking advantage of those opportunities, and how is that then correlating to what we're seeing from more of a standardized test perspective. But we wanted to see real life, authentic experiences out there.
So any questions about the report card or data that you see, clarification on it?
I think I had asked this last time, and I always forget, so I think it was last year you did a presentation on the internal ones that we were gonna put more weight into. When do those are more up to date? We're not obviously looking at something that's a year old and we're worried about it, but when do we plan to have those?
Yeah, so you're looking at the middle school one.
That's this one.
High school is looking at pulling their last little bit of data.
Okay.
To finalizing that, so hoping to have that going out at the same time.
Okay.
And you'll like put that on the website?
Yep, we link it right next to it.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7F, construction project update.
All right, well, really quickly, Christy, can you pull that, oh, Tom's got it, somebody? Pull that up. I linked the time-lapse video in from where we started this project to where it is right now. So that's the executive summary. Yeah, the video. Which is, oh, there you go. So this is just a time-lapse video of kind of what's happening with the project since it started to where we are today. So we're about halfway through the videos. Can you rewind it at all? Never mind. We're about where we were. So, but that's just, you know, you get a general idea of how fast this thing has gone up and how it's progressing. One of the things that I'm sure Dan will touch on is as we're getting closer to the snow flying, the time-lapse video is gonna look like it's not changing much because all the work is gonna move inside. We're getting to the point where the outside work is slowing down and the inside work is speeding up, I guess is what you could say right now. But you just watch the walls go up and you know, the cranes come and you can start seeing the trusses going up, and now the precast panels and how that all went up. So it's just, you know, kind of a neat, interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And how this is progressing, and then as this project progresses, we'll add more to it as we start to see more happening, and it'll be just a nice thing to have at the end, a nice archive to have at the end. But I'll turn it over to you, Dan, now with the monthly update.
So one thing with that video, been working on many projects, one thing I love is watching the excavators take that pile of dirt, move it over there, move it over there, move it over there, and then back over there. That's just how the building goes, and on that video you can see it perfectly, how they move a pile of dirt around for weeks. But, so, as alluded to, you know, work out there is progressing wonderfully, no big hiccups. Outside the building, we're really working on the brickwork, sealing up the building, the cold metal forms, the metal sheeting is gonna go on the clear story, stuff like that. Inside the building, you know, the MEPs, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractors are really going to town, getting what they can in. The bones of the project are really done, the metal beams, the masonry structural walls are all done. So now they're doing the interior masonry walls, the drywall walls around like the main office and stuff like that.
So you're actually starting to see, if you went out there about a month ago, you would just see a big open space. Now you're starting to see where the actual principal's office is, or where the school store is, or where the return for the trays are in the cafeteria. I mean, those are the walls that are starting to show now, so you can actually go stand in spaces and feel like you're in
And
what
it is pretty neat when you see, you know, the center commons area, just how tall it is. It's gonna look beautiful with all the windows in it, you know, so. One thing I do wanna touch on too, Findorf, our construction partner out there, has done a few tours for us already. One was an industry group, and then they had 3 student groups go through there. I believe the construction 1 and 2 classes got to tour the facility, so. Very exciting times.
And then we'll be running the staff through there on Monday during PD. And then if you looked at the board report, we have one scheduled for you guys before the net board meeting next month at 5 o'clock. So we'll go out there, tour from 5 to 5:30, come in here and do our committee meetings, and then continue on at the regular meetings. So if you get here about 5 or a little before, we'll get your hard hats, your safety glasses, your yellow vests, and your gloves, and get you all buttoned up and ready to go all.
Some hammers and.
Yeah, and a paintbrusher too.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Item 8, public forum. Public forum provides the public with the opportunity to ask questions for agenda or non-agenda items. Did we have anybody?
No.
Awesome. All right, item 9, consent agendas. Anything that needed to be pulled out that was not agreed to? Okay, I'll seek a motion to accept
You want to touch
consent.
on the
Yeah, I was gonna say
Oh, sorry.
we were gonna make a motion in a second, but we
Oh, sorry
made the
about
motion
that.
to approve move forward with a new vehicle purchase for the truck. We tried to do a search for the used ones, doesn't make sense. So we're gonna move forward with using the contingency budget.
That was unanimous decision.
Utilizing about half of what we had set aside for 2025, 2026 school year.
Okay, I'll seek a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Gorman. Second?
I'll second.
Second by Zebro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, discussion possible decision approval of monthly voucher list.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Got a motion by Nest,
I'll second.
second by Gorman. Roll call vote.
Bauer,
Yes.
Nest,
Yes.
Nadler,
Yes.
Zebro,
Yes.
Gorman,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Stankowski,
Yes.
Kaminsky.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 11, discussion and possible decision acceptance of monthly treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Nest,
I'll
Second.
second.
second by Kaiser. Roll call vote.
Nest,
Yes.
Nadler,
Yes.
Zebro,
Yes.
Gorman,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Stankowski,
Yes.
Kaminsky,
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 12, new business, discussion on the 26-27 school calendar.
Yeah, what I showed you as a preliminary school calendar, I like to get you the calendar the month ahead. The plan is give you a first look at it, and then if there's any changes you foresee, and we can try to get that passed in December so we can get this out to families so they can start making plans for Christmas break, spring break, summer trips, et cetera, for next year. The school calendar, administration reviewed it. Each then principal took it to their respective building leadership teams to review. I reviewed it today with the district leadership team, which is a group that I meet with, so there's been multiple input, we've sought input from the buildings as well to help develop this calendar. So we are moving back to the traditional September 1 start date, although we are looking at doing something on August 31st that would be like a school day, but we're gonna try to bring in all of the students new to a building or new to like 4th grade or like 6th grade that might start traveling without their class, just more independence. 9th grade and new students, give them an opportunity to kind of get in the building, learn what we have to offer. Kindergartners, but also try to alleviate some of those first day jitters that those kids may have being in a new spot, new location. And when you get to middle school kids, it's teaching them how to use their locker, because that's the biggest controversy for a 4th grade student is how to open their locker. So the sooner we can get that fixed for them, the better. But that's still kind of a work in progress. But that's kind of what we're thinking for that day. So if anybody has any changes, concerns, questions, by all means.
I see what are we doing for the 4K on the Mondays? There's no school.
That would be what we do this year, where we would look to move
We're
some
gonna-
of them to 4 Fridays.
I thought we were gonna try to avoid not moving them to Fridays. Cause then you should have a separate 4K calendar, correct?
Right, but I wanted to get one calendar passed before we create a second calendar.
Okay.
But if the desires,
Well, I thought we were talking about moving that so that wouldn't happen where we were disrupting the 4K. Being that they're only 4 days a week now, Monday through Friday. Or Monday through Thursday, sorry. Anyway, just something we had mentioned and talked about before.
I like the idea of like a soft start for kids, you know, the day before to kind of come in. Not as stressful as the first day, I like that.
So there'll still be open house though, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is only a discussion, it's not
Right.
finalized yet.
nope.
Any more comments, questions?
I'm fine with it.
Anybody else? Okay, awesome, thank you. Item 12B, discussion strategic planning process.
I was asked to put this on the agenda, but I also wanted to first provide some framework, which is attached to this, kind of around the work that administration is discussing and engaging with various groups from the community, where we're talking about building we started last year with a portrait of an educator. Now we're looking at portrait of a graduate, where we had our first meeting with industry partners. We have a second one scheduled, where they can come in and help us talk about that. We'll go to parents, students, and then we would do the same for the middle school age and the same for the elementary school age, where we're gonna talk about what everybody feels a student that moves from 3rd grade to 4th grade should look like and have, or the same with industry can know that when a student from Mosinee graduates, this is what they can expect out of that student from some durable skills concepts. And that's kind of what we looked at doing, is engaging all those individuals in a different way, and trying to seek input to create something that we can then formulate what we do around. So that's what we have.
It was brought, I mean, we've been trying to find time to do this for a while because of issues with the buildings and other things. You know, the strategic plan really is the roadmap to where we're going. And eventually, I think soon we'll probably have that information, and then we will sit down as a board and adopt a strategic plan. We were looking at it more from a student-centered approach than a rather overview type thing. So discussion, anything?
So we're thinking of doing a strategic plan with just, again, at the board level, maybe not looking at what we've done previously by inviting other individuals?
Well, they're doing, we could.
I mean, I'm just,
Yeah.
you know, we had put it out there at one time, and I know it's been a while since.
It's been a while.
I guess what I would say is if whatever the board wants to decide, it's the board's,
Right.
But if we are going to go through a strategic plan like's been done in the past, then we will probably stop the work that we are doing.
Okay.
Simply because it doesn't make sense to engage the same people in the same conversations twice. So we will probably halt what we are doing after our next meeting. I don't see a reason to continue down our path if the decision is to create a formalized strategic plan, because that could impact what happens with ours, and in a lot of cases, it might be the same individuals that you're asking the same questions.
And so, Greg, you're gonna bring this back. When you finalize your aspect, he's gonna bring it back.
Yep.
And that will be really kind of our plan.
It's up to the board if they wanna go through I think in the past, the board has hired a consultant to do that, so that would probably be something that we would have to look at doing, is figuring out what consultant would be hired, if you go through the formalized strategic planning process.
When was the last time that was done?
2020, I think.
So it was outdated in
Right around
2024, it expired. last year.
Yes.
I think, I like the work that you presented, I think that you're a really good piece of it, but personally, I wouldn't mind seeing something similar to what has been done in the past. I wasn't part of that. I don't, so Diane, Jessica, were you
Well,
part of it?
it was just a group of board members and then various community members, kind of what we're doing right here, right
Yeah.
now, because especially with the referendum and the passing
Yeah.
from the community and local businesses, you know, making sure we're getting a tie-in from, you know, everybody.
And I think that's what Greg's group is
Yes.
doing.
We did have
Yeah.
19 business members attend, and another 7 or 8 that were interested that weren't able to attend the first meeting.
Have we ever looked back at our old strategic plan and go, well, you know, this really worked, this kinda didn't?
I don't have a lot of
Well,
data
you-
for how it was created.
Right.
That was
I mean, all the.
If
I
you
believe
want-
the district
if you
hired
want-
Nexus as the consultant for it.
If you want my advice from teaching here for a long time, the strategic plan was just something on paper that not a lot of people followed.
That's why I like what Greg has going right
That's
here.
leadership's responsibility to do that.
Say that again?
That's leadership's responsibility to get them to follow the strategic.
Yep. I mean, that's why we put it on the agenda. Any more discussion? I mean, we
I
need
like
to make
what
a
I see
decision
right here.
if Greg's gonna continue on with what they're doing and then come back to us. I mean, obviously, we've gotta adopt it.
Right.
But they're doing the work of it, so we don't have to sit here and do that type of stuff.
I support that, for it to continue in that way.
I'm struggling to understand why the board wouldn't be a part of it, through it all. I mean, if that's what we are elected to do, then we should be a part of that process.
I think we get the final say, but I think giving the people that have to own it at the end of the day gives them more ownership in the entire
That's
process
kind of the
along the way,
process.
right?
Disagree.
Eventually, the board's going to have to approve it.
Right. But
We
you
will
gotta
have
I
have
in
think
the
the
for
process.
me, it'd be nice, and obviously we talk to people in the community but to be part of that, to know, I mean, you guys have filled us in on a lot of these things, but what the community's looking for from the district. That, you know, that's what I'm here to represent, so it's hard for me to know that and know what our goals are without really being part of it. It's kind of how I think.
Do we want to, on the next board meeting, actually go a little bit more in depth in what you're working on?
Yep, up to
I
the
mean,
board.
you guys, do you feel comfortable with that?
I mean, if the desire is to do a formalized strategic plan, then I would like to know sooner rather than later. So if that's the case, then we have to then discuss the process. Are we gonna interview consultants? Are we gonna just go back to Nexus that we had last time? Are we going to, you know, when do you wanna start? When do you wanna end? How do you wanna determine who's on it? I mean, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, and then obviously, there's a lot of time that isn't being invested
Do
in this
any of
process.
you know the last current strategic plan?
What's those, what did we get out of the last one?
Huh?
That facilities were the priority, which is what we implement.
And you accomplished.
Okay. I mean, I've looked at it also.
Yeah.
It was not that complicated, but it was.
No, but it just gives us some goals.
I agree.
And some guidelines.
And I think currently they're working at, we've accomplished part of that. Now, what are we gonna do with, once we've got the buildings, with the students?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you guys are working on is really good.
How
I
about
don't
this?
disagree with that.
How about at the
I
next
think
meeting,
it's a
Greg will
big
come
part of
back
it.
with a more formal presentation, and then we can make a decision from there.
And again, what's the decision gonna be?
What is the strategic plan is something that, it's a plan that the district tries to carry out for the next 4 years.
Okay. What is
So the decision would be
Who's
to
gonna do
whether
it?
do that, like last time they got together, the board, I guess I don't really know. The board got together
With the
with
consultant
the
and the community
consultant and
members.
community members
Mhm.
to form the strategic plan. Or, you know, the administration is kind of putting together something a little bit different, more of just like the student side of it. Or-
Along with outside sources.
Right.
Again, 19.
Yep.
Mhm.
Do you know what we paid the consultant last time? I think it was like $10,000 to $15,000 last time. Do you know, Rod?
I don't know who the consultant is,
Or was, yeah.
so no, I don't
Okay.
know. If you
I
have a
think it was
vendor, I
Nexus.
can pull up Skyward and look.
I'm not, don't quote me on that.
Do you think that you absolutely need a consultant to do a strategic plan?
I'm just
I
wondering
don't
what.
know.
I will say it's every strategic plan I've ever seen, the consultant is usually there to run the process.
Sure.
I was
That
gonna
way
say, I don't know if they're
administration
gonna
can be
add any
active
more
in the
value than
process.
the people in this room are anyway, so.
So Greg, are there board members on your group?
Not right now, but there'll be a time, I mean, we had the original one, board members are more than invited to attend the other ones. I think Tom has it in his report that they, or no, we just said it today. No, Friday you said it.
Yeah, just today, but I would.
More than happy to attend.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
yeah, it's nothing that we're not including. It's, and there'll be a time where we'll have a formal presentation with the board. We're just trying to get information from various stakeholder groups.
Do you know when the
like
meeting
parents.
is?
Say that again.
The next meeting?
December 5th
Yeah,
at 8
Friday,
o'clock,
December 5th at 8 a.m.
right here.
When is it, Greg?
December 5th at 8 o'clock in this room.
Is that a Friday?
Yep.
Friday?
It's a Friday.
I can email that out.
Yeah. Anybody will, I'll attend. Anybody else interested in attending?
If I'm able.
Okay, Joe, so we can email you, we could attend and observe and watch.
I would just need to know if I have to post it, if there's a quorum.
Okay,
It's that Friday.
if there's 5 of us, there's a quorum, we'd have to post it. Anybody else? Is this the route you wanna go, or do you wanna change it? Cause then I think that'll cancel all the plans.
I think what I'd like to do is see a little bit more in depth of where we proceeded to get to this point.
Okay. So continue on with their process, board members, and then they can attend the meeting, and then come back in December and put it on the agenda. We okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So we'll vote in December on how we're gonna move forward. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at that point, yeah, you'd have more information.
After more of a.
Mhm. Again, I'm just gonna tell you, most people don't know the strategic plan, most people don't get involved. She could say it's leadership, whatever, but a lot of times it's just something that you had to do.
Well, I think it holds
I agree,
us
I'm not,
accountable as well.
I'm not
you know
disagreeing
what I
with the
mean?
process.
Like, yeah.
But the problem is, when only a select group of people do it that are not really connected to the school on a daily basis, you don't get
I don't think
always
that we
the
should do it
results you want.
ourselves.
No.
Was that?
I said, I don't think we should do it ourselves, but it also gives the board some goals
Yeah,
as well.
in the past, board members,
So-
boards kind of did it themselves with a consultant.
And I think Calandra said that hopefully the voters were representing the voters, so they have a view that's different than the administration. Administration's gotta be involved too, that's gotta be
Yeah.
somehow we gotta figure out a way to get along together. and come
I
up
don't
with
think
something
that's
that-
an issue, I just think that, I think this is a more grassroots operation. Okay, so I know I'll attend the December 5th. I think Joe will attend when you get an email out, and then we'll put it on the December agenda.
What is it again?
Right here.
Right here in this room. He'll send an email out to everybody.
Okay.
Anybody, any more discussion? Okay. Item 13, administrative reports.
I have nothing to add.
Any other administrators? We've had a lot of reports. Okay, item 14, other reports, the Wisconsin Association of School Board reports. Glenda?
Yeah, I just put a little update from the conference that I attended on Saturday down in Point. And then we have the state convention coming up, which Greg noted in there, so. I think
And we had
that's-
several people get awards.
Yep.
Which was
Yes,
nice.
that was
At
their.
the fall regional, yep.
Okay, and the state convention, I think we have a few people going.
Yep,
and
yep, let us know.
When
if
do you need
wanna
to know
go.
that?
The sooner the better.
Sooner the
We
better.
have to let the Hilton know if we're canceling rooms. We have an additional room. We reserved more than what said they were going, in case anybody wanted to change their mind.
I think the keynote speaker or the opening ceremony is Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Yep. I think the vendor hall opens at like 9 or 8:30 or something like that on Wednesday.
Okay. Any other? Item B, the CISA 9 report.
CISA 9 for October, it was more about, they had a group get together with Jill Underly and Greg, were you part of?
I had a prior engagement, I wasn't able to
Okay.
attend that one.
And staff, and, they were at CISA 9 along with, I believe, Corey Tomczyk and Mary Feltzkowski.
They came before.
They
The
came
legislators were before, and then they left, and then Jill came in.
in.
Yep, that's
Okay,
usually how they
right.
do it.
And anyway, so that was that CISA's motto is boots on the ground. That's why their personnel they've hired are out and about and in the community. They had a little presentation for the board. That's why I'm wearing my CISA t-shirt. We all got t-shirts and some other little trinkets for the school board week. That was in October. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Item 15, future agenda items.
Hoping, every year's a little different, but we're hoping to have the WASB resolutions ready. That gives the board an opportunity to look at them and tell either Calandra to vote how she wants, or tell Calandra how to vote on certain ones, or however that goes. It's usually a highly exhilarating discussion. Evaluations, it's just like it's a highly exhilarating WASB resolution meeting. Evaluations of the school violence drills we always do in December. Summer school presentation we'll have. It's also the highly anticipated audit report and management letter that Rod will be able to talk about. We'll do a little presentation on liftoffs, and then we also have now our portrait of a graduate, portrait of an educator type presentation. And then I was requested to put on there a truancy presentation.
Yeah, if you want more information, because just the seminar that we attended from last Tuesday, and you know, we saw even the report tonight with the truancy, and how are we addressing it with parents and students, and I think the one school district, Neilsville, you know, doing that nudge letter to the parents, and actually having a visual sent to the parents to show them, you know, this is where your student is at, this is where their grade level is at, and this is where the state is.
do something.
Because a lot of people right now don't understand, they just see a number.
We do something very similar.
Okay, but that's
So
something
we'll-
we,
they'll show you.
Right.
I have an outline prepared of what I wanna cover, for that, so we will go through all that. Because the one thing that the board needs to, people need to understand, not just the board, is although truancy is a state law, how a county handles truancy is different county to county to county. You know, we're at least fortunate that we're pretty much in one county, or we are in one county, so you only have to work with Marathon. I've been in districts that have been in 3 counties before, and sometimes it's based off of the address of the kid to determine what your options are from a truancy standpoint. If they live in one county basically says, I'm not doing anything. Another county wants to take it to the nth degree, and then some counties are like, eh. So it's all based on what county you live in. If you have a municipal ordinance, there's a lot of factors involved in that, so we wanna also touch those points as well.
Future items? Is that what?
Yeah,
we're
you
doing?
can suggest anything.
Do you think we could get an update of the SRO progress? I know it kind of fell through the cracks a little bit here, maybe, I don't want to blame anyone, but how, you know, I thought we were January 1st and April 1st have another one. Is that still the?
As far as I've been told, yes, that's still the plan. I haven't been told differently.
And who would tell you that?
The chief of police, because it
Okay.
all is based on how soon they can have an officer.
Well, he
ready
likes to
give
talk,
us.
he'd come and talk.
So, I think the April one is a little bit more, in the lurch, because that was somebody they were gonna offer a conditional, offer to, and I haven't heard if that person accepted that offer. and
Don't
they
you
had to
think
go
it's
to
good to
retreat.
keep a little bit of focus on that, because it's, to me, very important?
well, there was something, I don't know, Joe, did you receive when your water bill for the city, and the meeting is on Monday for their budget. And one of the items addressed in there was the patrol officers.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm. But that's Monday night.
Well, I might go to that, but I think everyone in here
Will be interesting,
would
cause,
appreciate a little.
Yeah,
You might
update.
go there and hear one story and come here and you're a different one, and one of the things I struck me and that made me happy is that you're gonna have more SRRs at, sporting events. And I might suggest, Paul, that this is a pretty soft target right here we're sitting at right now. And you watch the news, and there's a lot of times that board meetings turn into violent
Well, I'm the one that put it on the agenda because I was bothered that we didn't have an SOR officer for 4 months in our district.
Yeah.
And I was very concerned that our correspondence was that, oh yes, they're coming, there's another one coming, then that one didn't come, and then this, so I wanted to push the envelope to say, look, we need
I'm just saying,
these officers.
let's keep pushing
Okay.
by having regular updates that, until
Well,
it gets done.
it bothered me from a safety aspect that we didn't even have one.
Yeah.
And there was no
why were we looking
plan.
to reduce?
Was that?
Why were we considering removing or reducing a position?
I don't think we were, well, number one, they didn't think they could deliver. Every time he said there was gonna be an officer, they couldn't deliver. And we already had provided some things for them. There were, I think it was a patrol car, correct?
That we haven't been billed for that yet.
Okay, but I just wanted some clarification to come in and say, look, if we need 3 officers, let's get them.
So do we have the money appropriated, and does the city
Yes.
have the money appropriated?
Yes.
Fund 80.
Yes.
Or are we not sure?
No, it's all a yes.
We have Fund 80, but
So the big problem is finding somebody?
it's
Or
hiring,
finding-
it's hiring on their end.
Is that because they're not available, or because no one has time to look for them?
Well, there's difference of
That's-
opinions.
I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, it's
throwing
difference
out
of
dumb
opinions,
questions.
and quite honestly, I'm not going to
Well-
conjecture about their hiring practices or
But-
what it is. I do know that law enforcement has a shortage of officers across the country.
Well,
Yes.
if you look in our
So-
neighboring communities.
I know that.
Our neighboring communities are having problems hiring, police officers for full-time officers. So Mosinee is not the only one, our neighboring
I understand
communities are also.
One of the questions I was just gonna bring up, so on Tom's board report for the in-service day, you guys have some time dedicated to safety training?
Yep.
Is there something we can get out of that if we were to
Uh,
stop in for a few hours? Is that totally separate? than
No, if you
what
can
this
stop
should
in,
be?
no, it's,
I just wanted to.
we're reviewing we're putting the staff through a reunification process. So they can see what the reunification process looks like from the perspective of a parent, perspective of somebody doing it like an employee, and then a perspective of a student. So they get a full rounded view of how that process works out, because that's something that's hard to practice, in some cases, so we're putting them through a scenario, on that.
Okay, so I guess my ask would be if there's anything going on in the next week, if there's something on the agendas that would benefit us showing
Yeah,
up.
I mean-
I'm happy to set aside time and
Yeah.
come in and hang out.
Well, I agree with Joe, and I think Greg will be having more discussions with them about the status and what's going on.
So that does bring up an interesting thing. Does the school board have a regular member that goes to the city council?
No.
It's
Is that a
called
good
Joe.
idea?
It's called Joe.
Huh?
It's called Joe. Monday night.
I'll see you there.
That would be another discussion, to set up a liaison
Yeah.
with the city or all the municipalities.
Oh, I think that's we
That
talked
could be
about
some
that.
of the agenda
Yeah.
to bring up.
Yeah.
We've never had that in the past.
I try to go to some of the.
But I don't think it's bad, especially for those that do represent a
If
certain.
you represent that thing, it
Yeah.
might be a good thing to go.
Yeah.
But we do have 3 at-large members. Okay, any other agenda items? Okay, I'll seek, item 16, adjournment, I'll seek a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Gorman, second by Zebro. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? No. Meeting adjourned.
I don't need my name. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you to all you veterans too. Huh? I just, no, but I wasn't, I didn't see you. I did.
Guess I thought that was neat.
Joe, I don't listen.
So I'm like, this
Christine, Matt?
We went in parachuting and was security.
I'm meeting with
Everybody, Calandra, we all have to.
I didn't know. Can I sign that?
I'm just gonna go use the
Don't leave
bathroom, I'll
until
be
you
right
sign
back.
the check.
Yeah, can you put me down for January?
Can you, for the, he's saying for the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I?
Then determine which item you want to do.
I did.
Megan, if it's in Milwaukee, I could have it.
That's it, next. Derek? Hey, Derek, you gotta sign.
Yeah, I know.
Calandra, you gotta sign.
I know.
Because I can. And if that,
Maybe I will.